big old huge holes that are just
So they
over a third of them a year to keep them in check. Well, a third of the 6 million pigs in the state that can't be done.
2 million pigs.
Welcome to Person vs. Porcine, Hogs Gone Hog Wild, a podcast by Taylor Bendel, Kate Grubin, and me, Sarisha Podell.
The Grubin family have been cotton farmers in Rotan, Texas since at least the early 20th century. In order to get an idea of the scope of the issue, I talked to two farmers from the Grubin family. I talked to Bobby Grubin, who is now a retired cotton farmer who farmed for over 50 years on this land, and he talks about his experience with the hogs and how they weren't really an issue when he was farming, but he did start to notice them towards the end of his career as a farmer. Whereas Donnie Carl Grubin has been a farmer more recently. He started out as a pilot, talks about his experiences and how the issue has grown over time. Through this, we are able to get a good idea of what is going on in this community, along with others that are very similar to, if not exactly like it.
They just bust the wires.
Yeah.
We fix it, put a panel up that maybe they can't get through, then look over to where the end of that panel is and go through it again. They'll go back to behind here and the price will be cheap so that people don't want to go spend the money running all over the country checking traps.
Yeah.
Because they can't pay for their gas. Most guys are just doing it for fun.
Yeah.
And then they only take the bigger ones. They don't take all the smaller ones. When you catch them in a trap, usually you have a sow and all her piglets. And the only way to get rid of all these pigs is to shoot them piglets. And
So they can't reproduce.
There's a lot of guys that can't do that. They'll turn them back out. So then here we go again because the pigs will produce.
Do you happen to know how often they're able to reproduce a year, or?
They usually get 2, possibly 3 if conditions are right. Litters a year of up to 10 in a litter. A lot of them are 6 to 10. And a piglet, a saddle, she'll be ready to have a first set in 9 months. 9 to 12 months, they're ready to breed and have another litter. This was at 2,500 feet.
Mm-hmm.
We saw big groups of pigs all the way.
Mm-hmm.
So they're all over a third of them a year to keep them in check. Well, a third of the 6 million pigs in the state that can't be done.
2 million pigs.
So these hogs have been around for a long time. They were brought in by hunters for breeding purposes and
Game
purposes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was kind of the consensus that I got from my relatives, was that there were 2 big incidences of these hogs in Rotan.
And a lot of it's just due to generational time.
Yeah.
A lot of these pigs that we have were domestic pigs. And guys just had pigs, and finally they got tired of raising pigs and decided it was time to do away with it. Well, a lot of people just turned their pigs out, or there were some guys just raising them on a little pasture, and over time some got out and they just keep multiplying. There are a few what they call wild boars in here that people brought in for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
But they've crossed up with the domestic, or the feral, what we call them, feral pigs.
Gotcha.
There's a few of these hunters, some neighbors we have, they feed deer, corn, and protein year round, all the time. That's just unreal for a wild animal. So this field right here,
Yeah.
they've tore it up some already, and he's trying to get grass growing back on it, but
It's difficult with the pigs constantly.
Hard deal to do.
Yeah.
We have just enough farming mixed in with the pasture.
Mm-hmm.
It's great cover, great food.
Mm-hmm.
Got water everywhere. They can survive.
Yeah.
They're good at surviving on nothing, but they can really survive when everything's. We got one neighbor that feeds year round, and you fly over his place and you think you're just looking at show pigs. I mean,
they're big,
fat, healthy, look just like a show pig.
don't look like what you would expect wild animals to look like.
No.
When would you say is the best time of day to hunt, and what do they use in these helicopters to hunt them?
What do they use depends on the situation. Donnie Carl goes over many different methods of situations as to when they would use what. So sometimes they use buckshot to kill more infants, sometimes they use snipers, sometimes they use like assault rifles. It just kind of depends on what the situation gives them. Best time of day, probably reproduction values of these animals, wherein they are reproducing at a very high frequency, and when they do reproduce, there is a lot of infants at a time. The population has become unmanageable. In order to manage the population, I think it was about a third of the animals needed to be killed, and that is not easy to do if you confine your hunting time to a specific season. This is seen with other animals where you, like white-tailed deer, there is deer season, there's dove season. All the other animals that I'm aware of have a season, whereas these hogs do not, which I think is incredibly indicative of how serious the problem is for these people. Pigs essentially find a safe haven and are therefore not being killed, and are therefore contributing to a greater increase of population. I mean, yeah, it's pretty extensive to have this much damage.
Yeah.
What pigs that accomplish this damage, or is it kind of like
30 or 40.
Gotcha. Well,
We see a lot of groups around here that you see anywhere from a single boar running by himself up to 50 in a group.
gotcha.
Average group size is probably 20 to 30. Got a couple of sows and their piglets until they're able to go on their own, and then they split off and make more groups.
Yeah. What?
But it turned into a good tool,
Yeah.
We use it for controlling the pigs and herding and spraying and a lot of other things. But the big deal kind of exploded about the same time as we started getting into the helicopters.
So there.
We have a lot of people buying this land that are deer hunters from Dallas cities.
Mhm.
They don't want anybody to shoot their pigs because they're going to come out in hunting season and shoot pigs.
Mhm.
Well, they're here maybe 2 or 3 times during a 2-month hunt. You may come out here, if you come out here for 2 or 3 days, you might not ever see a pig.
Okay.
Yeah. They've changed it where you don't have to have a hunting license or anything, to where you can just shoot anytime. Encouraging people to shoot some so that we kind of maybe get some of it under control.
An unreachable goal.
Yeah, services, that's all they do is hunt pigs for people with helicopters, and that's what their main business is, just hunting. And they stay busy big part of the year.
They're busy year round.
They're a little slow moving just because they just want to be by close to water.
Yeah.
But the majority of the time they're moving all the time.
Gotcha.
They're always looking for food and always looking for water, and they'll live on anything. They can live on anything, but they'll be moving a little more when it's cooler, and they've gotten a lot more. Used to, you'd see them moving a lot more during the day. They're getting, if they're around people and stuff, they'll get to where they're moving more at night.
So you think that they're...
Okay, so we know that these pigs are destructive, but what are the real effects of these pigs in this area and other areas similar?
So in Rotan, there was extensive agricultural damage. There were stories of the pigs being road hazards, and there were also stories of the issues with the pig breeders in the area.
Okay, so what do you mean exactly when you say agricultural damage?
Yeah, so the way that Donnie Carl, we took his truck and we went down the very very poorly maintained dirt roads of Rotan, and he showed me acres and acres and acres of farmland, and how he described the issues were that... What an area would you say that is?
Oh, that's a 100-acre field.
And
what it is. And
I mean, I've seen damage in about 75% of it.
Yeah.
From what we can see. Wow.
Yeah, that's the field we tried to farm. That we just
It just couldn't.
couldn't feasibly do it anymore.
Hmm.
Because those holes, they don't look that bad, but you get out there, they're about 2 to 3 foot in diameter at the top, and they go down to a point. So some of them will be a foot and a half deep. You run a tire off in there, it just
Messes with your tires.
hard on your drive lines and everything.
So not only are they feeding on the land, they're not very good at it.
No.
So you also mentioned road hazards. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
And my grandpa expressed concern when I was driving in late at night, and I found out because the pigs are more active at, like, I would say they're cathemeral, meaning that they're active kind of dawn, dusk, nocturnally active. I mean, I drove through here 3 weeks ago, and one come out in the road, and it was about the size of my. I mean, it probably looked bigger because it was late at night, but I nearly hit it.
You also mentioned pig breeders. I have never heard of that one before. Can you talk about that a little more?
Yeah, that one was kind of out of left field for me too, because I knew about agricultural damage, like that's kind of a given with an invasive species in an area where it's not supposed to be, as well as animals running out into the road. But what I was shocked to discover was how the breeding industry was affected, because if these wild animals get in somehow with the domesticated animals, the breeders become unable to use the pigs in competition or for production because of the nature of the wild pig.
Got one neighbor over here lives right next to me up in right in the farmland. He raises show pigs. These pigs come up there. His show pigs come up testing for pseudo rabies. Well, he got kicked out of the show. He couldn't take any of his pigs to the shows for 3 years while the state come out and tested his show pigs. And he knows it's the only way they could have got it was from these pigs.
Oh, okay. Was it just like the proximity that got him the pseudo rabies, or was it the breeding?
I don't know. His pens aren't
his pens aren't that great.
Yeah, his pens aren't that great, but
I'm sure his pens are a little better now.
Yeah, they got mixed in, got it somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're just impacting a lot of the workforce down here, aren't they?